Можно? Добрый день, дамы и господа.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nikolay Tsiskaridze. I'm rector of the Academy of Russian Ballet, named after Vaganova, St. Petersburg. Today, I have an honorary mission to be the moderator of presentations at the International Cultural Forum in St. Petersburg. I also, with great pleasure, welcome all those who have come to the new building of Alexandrinsky Theatre, all representatives of the cultural community of St. Petersburg. They are more than 100. Thank you for having come here. You will also participate in our event. Now, you will watch a cartoon on the former 3 fora held in St. Petersburg. Thank you very much. For me, it is a great honor to be a moderator today. I represent not only culture, and by second education, I am your colleague. I am a master of law. In the sphere of culture and in the sphere of education, which I represent now, there are a lot of issues to be discussed, and I think that at the next forum the issues of culture and education will be raised and discussed and implemented, which is highly important for us. And now it's with great pleasure that I invite the Minister of Culture of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Medinsky, and the Governor of St. Petersburg, Georgy Poltavchenko. And of course, the floor is given to you, Vladimir Vladislavovich. Georgy Sergeyevich, Nikolay Maximovich, dear friends, I would like to remind you that after the first Cultural Forum held in St. Petersburg, only 2 years have passed. It was based on a direct initiative of St. Petersburg. We are very grateful to Georgy Sergeyevich for that idea, which started with your letter to the heads of the country. Then the relevant resolution was adopted, and actually the idea was generated and started from zero. In 2012, the forum was held only at one venue in Mikhailovsky Theatre, and there were only 70 participants. But even then, essentially, that single action provoked a great interest in the cultural community. And last year, less than 2 years, the third St. Petersburg Forum was in 72 venues and the 70,000 participants. So now it has become the most important and influential cultural events held in Russia. We can state that gradually the forum is becoming a cultural Davos, and unlike many other known fora, it is a positive Davos. There are no excessive political or economic debates. This year, St. Petersburg Forum will be held under the auspices of UNESCO. It will be dedicated to the 70th anniversary of setting up that universal humanitarian organization, the activity of which is aimed at development of culture, preservation and popularization of cultural heritage. This year, the Soviet Union and Russia are the founders of UNESCO and will celebrate 25th anniversary of inclusion of the first Russian cultural sites into the UNESCO. The architectural ensemble of Kitche Graveyard, the Moscow Kremlin, and the Historical Center of St. Petersburg. The work of the forum will be held under the within 13 sections, and this morning the heads of the sections had a meeting at each session. The representative of UNESCO will make their presentations, the representative of the foreign cultural community. They will be divided into flows, official, business education and public trends. I'd like to mention additionally that the forum will discuss, please take it into account, at this legal community, the issues related to legal regulation in the sphere of culture. UNESCO is also engaged in active expert work in that field. The Ministry of Culture is ready to open dialogue, and we're looking forward to specific proposals, including proposals on the topical issues of legal issues related to culture, protection of copyright in the internet, changes in the principle of financing of cultural institutions, and the involvement of patronage and improvement of legislation in culture is one of the most important tasks. So I would like to invite all the participants and specialists of St. Petersburg Legal Forum to the December Cultural Forum, because the legal issues will be emphasized at this forum. Now I would like to briefly discuss several aspects of lawmaking which are most important on the eve of the International Cultural Forum. Primarily, that is copyright. Secondly, the problems of removal and bringing back of cultural values. And then the preservation of historic cultural heritage, immovable monuments in the history of culture. Last year, the Minister of Culture worked actively to provide the legislative basis for the mechanism of extrajudicial blocking of illegally placed content in the internet. So how could we combat with piracy in the internet? That is not legal language. Major steps have already been made, and we have anti-piracy legislation. From June 2015, it will apply not only to films but also to literature, musical products. At the same time, we realize that internet and information technologies are developing much quicker than the legislation, and the Minister of Culture still believes that the measures that were taken are not sufficient to eradicate internet piracy. In our view, if we manage to just introduce the responsibility of internet mediators for a violation of the extrajudicial order, as we proposed, the violations in the internet might be less in number, and all the sites and all the mediators will be forced to remove piracy copies and to protect access to them. The problems of internet piracy is one of the most important problems related to protection of copyright, so we invite all of you to cooperate. We're ready to listen to the proposals of the specialists. Another question is the removal and bring back of cultural values. Last year, the Minister of Culture provided the amendments so as to bring our legislation in accordance with the international law. They will be included into the deputy's draft law that was adopted by the State Duma in the first reading at the end of 2014. Now it is planned to adopt it in the second and third readings. We think that the adoption of the new law is necessary, as well as the currently operational norms adopted in the early 90s that need finalization. I won't discuss the essence of the amendments. The political approach consists in the following. We think that as regards the bringing of cultural values to Russia, we have to provide the regime of the favorable regime to remove the administrative barriers, bureaucratic procedures, so that will be at maximum comfortable and convenient without provoking a great number of paper bureaucracy. As to bring the cultural values to other countries, we have to think how should we, on the contrary, and not to enhance but to regulate more strictly the process, to stop all possible attempts at smuggling or just attempts to officially withdraw the objects that should not be removed from the country. For instance, there are two approaches in the world. The extremely liberal approach, or the American approach. You can bring and take anything you want, and there are probably not so many cultural values. The history of the USA is just a bit shorter than the history of Vaganova ballet school, so they are younger in that respect, and that problem is less urgent. For instance, you cannot take away anything from Italy under whatever conditions. The governmental and the parliamentary resolutions necessary for that. So we have to find our own trend that would ensure a free market of cultural values on the one hand, and convenience for collectioners and for storage of collections in Russia. On the other hand, it would not allow just the situation which we had in the first half of the 90s, when icons were brought away and paintings, and they formed whole collections abroad that are quite that cannot be evaluated, and they should have never left the territory of their motherland on a constant basis.
Now, as for the monuments of culture, the movable monuments, the law was taken last year, 200 pages that changed a lot of the existing norms. First of all the objects, all the sites of cultural heritage do have a certain level of burden on the owners, and the lawyers know how important it is that buying these monuments with a certain burden. Now we come across a situation when the monument is changing hands, that often it turns into ruins, and so the purpose of these new laws is to exclude a situation like that completely. Moreover, on the initiative of Saint-Petersburg, there were adopted rather strict norms concerning enormously high fines and even criminal prosecution for the illegitimate destruction of monuments. Moreover, in the real estate registry, you will find not only the description of the monuments, but you will find the area, the territory, the constraints associated with the use of that particular site within the territory, and the lands and the use of lands in the vicinity. So talking in simple language. What happened at Borodino and Radenish at Arkhangelsk should never be permitted. And the purpose of the new legislation is exactly in that. The law defines the territory of the monument of heritage, and the law defines the boundaries, and there is quite a lot of detailed norms. This is just a very short list of the legislative initiatives. They're all interconnected. First of all, they're related to the preservation and conservation of cultural heritage, which is the main function of UNESCO. All this will be continued within the framework on the main law on culture. And with the deputies, we agreed. Both draft laws that have been prepared, the one comes from the ministry, the other one from the deputies. But anyway, we agreed with the deputies because for them it is politically important, particularly since the parliamentary elections are so close, that we will proceed from the deputies' draft and we'll fill it in with our own amendments. And we hope very much that the first reading of this draft law takes place this year. Of course, we hope very much that it goes through all the readings, because the old legislation on culture of 1992 is absolutely outdated, morally and materially. And I would like to congratulate many of those who are heading our cultural institutions. The State Duma officially works now on the draft document prepared by the ministry together with the Council of the Federation and Valentina Matviyenko, who was very active in this work, together with Sergei Naryshkin, who is also one of the authors of this draft law. But it's the draft law which is going to bring sense to the law on philanthropy adopted last year. You know that many criticized this law as purely declarative, and we know who the philanthropists are, create conditions for them. But the work of the past year was far from being useless, because next there is the stage that is associated with the amendments of the tax code. So the draft law that is submitted and signed by Matviyenko, Naryshkin, Gavarukhin, Dragun, and many other deputies. So preliminary, we have coordinated it, and it has gone through the zero-level reading at the interested ministries and agencies of the government of Russia. And so this draft law, as I see it, is absolutely unprecedented. It's revolutionary. It allows companies, legal entities, to include the philanthropy expenses associated with the municipal and state monuments as part of the cost of their activity. No, in the past they used to say we cannot spend anything on that because we have low level of profit and we do not have money, while the costs on advertising actually were as high as the primary cost. And so if only this principle, with certain limits of course, could be incorporated into the sphere of our state museums, libraries and theaters, then of course the cultural institutions would gain and the companies would part with their money. So it's a revolutionary draft document, and the document that will definitely help a lot our cultural institutions. Now, if Georgy Sergeyevich allows me, I would like to share some nice news with you. You know, the previous foray did not have a single center of management and control and decision-making. Some of the work was carried out by the Ministry of Culture. Part of the work was done by the Committee for Culture of the government of St. Petersburg. Some work was done by the cultural institutions. So there was a lot of enthusiasm, but there was no management structure. So we agreed with Governor Poltavchenko immediately before our session this afternoon about the central administration of the Cultural Forum, consolidating all the efforts, and I'm quite sure this will enable us to move to a much higher level, and I wish all of you in this context successful work. And once again, allow me to invite participants of the Legal Forum to take part in our workshops dedicated to the legal regulation in the field of culture at the St. Petersburg Cultural Forum. Thank you very much, and I would like to thank the city of St. Petersburg for its hospitality. Thank you, Vladimir Sergeyevich. Now, Georgy Sergeyevich, the floor is yours. Esteemed Vladimir Seslavovich, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the Minister, Medinsky. Everything has been said. There is not much to add, but still, just a few words. Indeed, when we initiated the International Cultural Forum in 2011, there was a lot of skepticism associated with it. Many believed that it was a stillborn project, but thanks to the fact that we're absolutely sure that St. Petersburg is the city where culture should be discussed, and in the context not just of Russia, but Europe and the rest of the world. So this attitude of ours, thanks to the support of the country's leaders, and thanks to the support of the Ministry of Culture, very active support, made forum possible. And so, as Vladimir Seslavovich said, last year over 6,000 people took part in the forum. They were most active participants. And what is important here? The discussions at the forum were no less popular than the cultural component of the forum. At different platforms, at different sites, discussions were held within workshops moderated by the people whose name are known far beyond Russia. True professionals in their field, masters. Important issues were discussed there. And discussions demonstrated that there is a lot of themes, a lot of issues, beginning with some nuances of this or that genre in arts, up to legal issues, the problems of the dialogue of civilizations. And I'm sure that the further development of our forum is inevitable, because there is more and more interest displayed to it. And the next forum that is planned for this year is going to be held under the auspices of UNESCO, but we would also like to fill it in with other components. We are planning to remind the world that it's the world of Tchaikovsky, 175 years of his birth, 100 years of Sviridov, then 75 years of Josip Brodsky, Nobel Prize winner. These are all Russians. They are all from this city, and the active participation of the regions of Russia is planned, and for that reason we decided to extend the span for the forum. And the cultural part of forum will begin in November, although the forum itself is traditionally held in December. And over this period of time, everyone who wants to get acquainted with the culture of different regions of the Russian Federation, who wants to take part in different festivals, in different events, will have a chance to do that. We will have the traditional festival, Diaghilev Postscript, held. That's one of the festivals to mention. Well, I'm quite sure that the interest to this forum will keep expanding, and Mr. Medinsky mentioned already some organizational aspects associated with the forum, and I'm quite sure we'll be able to host it at the level that is important for the discussion and for the settling of different issues. And as for the purpose of our presentation today at the legal forum, it is as follows. In our state, a lot is being done. Different laws are being adopted pertaining to the work of cultural institutions and cultural agencies, and philanthropy has already been mentioned today. Philanthropy was typical of Russian entrepreneurship, Russian industrialists in the past, and it's a topical issue today, because there is a serious need now to define the legal forms of interaction of public-private partnership in culture. And the draft law that is submitted to the State Duma today is the fruit of very serious collective work. And as we know from the history of culture, there is no limit to perfection, and to the involvement of professionals, of lawyers in this discussion within the framework of the cultural forum could lead to most interesting projects. So if there is a wish displayed by the lawyers to take part in the forum, we are ready to have a special workshop or a special site at which lawyers will discuss the interaction and cooperation between private sector and public sector in culture. I am quite sure that there is mutual interest in that, and well, of course, those who work in this field of culture will inspire lawyers, and if lawyers help them to understand better what the relationship between business, state, and cultural institutions should be like, and what philanthropy
And
is.
I think that those who work in culture will be glad for their success. I invite you with all my heart to attend the 4th International Cultural Forum in St. Petersburg, and I can assure you that it will be a success. Thank you. Thank you, Georgy Sergeyevich. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you have a possibility to ask questions to Vladimir Rostislavich and Georgy Sergeyevich. Vladimir Rostislavich made such a good presentations, probably no questions will follow. Then thank you very much. To conclude, I would like to tell you that the presentation of the International Cultural Forum will also be held in the during the International Economic Forum on the 20th of June 2015, so you can participate in it. Georgy Sergeyevich, I would like to thank St. Petersburg on behalf of all participants of the Cultural and Economic Forum and the Legal Forum, because St. Petersburg is really one of the main cities of our country, and lately more and more is being done, not only for culture but also for the economy, so that our laws would be improved and perfected. Please, dear journalists, you can come to the press desk and you will be able to ask questions to our participants. Thank you very much.
Уважаемые представители СМИ.
Dear representatives of mass media, we invite you to the press wall, the press approach to members of presentation of the 4th St. Petersburg International Cultural Forum. Thank you.